Okay. My first video ever, and not sure if it'll turn out, not sure if I'll ever do anything with it, not sure if anybody will ever see it. But a couple of my kids thought that I needed to make videos. And I have always felt like there's plenty of other people to make videos. I don't need to do it. But the one thing that made me decide to make one today is that I'm making these sun catchers or ornaments for the craft show that I'm going to be doing in January and February. And the prices of supplies have gotten so high. And of course, my time is involved. And, you know, there's a lot of effort that goes into one of these. And I was thinking about my pricing structure, which is currently $5 a piece of glass. And that's what I charge for sun catchers. That's what I charge for commissions. That's basically what I charge. 2, 3, 4. And I realize that with these stars that I'm making, I am going to need to charge $25 to hold true to my pricing structure. And $25 on the face of it seems like a lot of money for a little star. Now, to be fair, this is the star, that's just glass. That's all there is. And when I'm done with it, now that I've got flux on my hands, when I'm done with it, it's going to look like this, which is a whole lot different than this. So I thought maybe I would just do this video to show why I charge so much money for something that seems relatively simple. And it is relatively simple. But once you get your basic shape, this is not sturdy. This is only held together by these 5 little seams. And they're not very big. This whole thing is only about 5.5 or 6 inches. So you don't have a lot holding it together. You can probably even see it flexing. So on every piece that I make that does not have some kind of a zinc frame, I wire it. And I wire it for stability so that it is sturdy and will last for a long time, and you don't have to worry about copper foil, which is the only thing on the outside edges here, holding your piece together. And in the 24 years that I've been making stained glass, to the best of my knowledge, I have never had a single piece fall apart. I've had pieces break because they got dropped or they fell, but I've never had a piece fall apart because of structural integrity. And that is why, part of the reason why I'm going to charge $25 for these. And I'm going to show you the amount of time it takes and the amount of effort it takes to make a piece like this that's wired and has the decoration on it to make it something I think special. So I'm going to ramble. I will try not to talk too much, but I probably will because that's just in my nature. But I will try to explain a little bit of the process as I go along. To start out, and obviously this part has been done already, I cut out, using a pattern, I cut out 5 individual pieces of glass. I chose the glass, in this case, it's blue with a streak, and I laid the pattern pieces, and I don't know if you can see it, so that the streaks all converge in the center so that it kind of looks like a starburst. That's this piece. The other blue piece that I showed earlier, also a yellow one that has streaks in it as well. This one is called glue chip, and it is got iridescent text coloring to it. It's clear, but when the light hits it a certain way, it shimmers like the rainbow, and it makes for really beautiful objects. And they actually do not make this glass anymore. They still make glue chip, but they do not make iridized glue chip. I happened to find this glass at the store where the store owner purchased it in an estate sale or a buyout. And I will say, glue chip is really fascinating glass. It's not tremendously expensive, although the little piece that I made this out of was just $10 for that. But glue chip is made, and I just became educated on this. I knew that it was done using glue, but I did not know that it was done by sandblasting the back of the glass, and then they spread hide glue, which is glue made from the hides of horses or cattle or whatever, but it's made from their hides. They spread that on there, and then it is sealed up in a airtight container. And then 24 hours after that, you go in and you peel the glue off the glass, and it takes some of the glass with it, and it leaves this really cool frosted, almost looks like feathers and window frost texture on it. And you can do it twice. They call it double glue chip, and then it will take off even more. And double glue chip is really beautiful too. Anyway, so nobody cares. That's me rambling because it's what I do. Anyway, I have already cut my wires. I cleaned them because if these particular wires didn't want to take solder when I was using them earlier, so I cleaned them with fine steel wool. I stretched them straight so that they don't have any kinks. That kink is from holding it with a pair of pliers to stretch it. I stretched it so that it would be straight, and I measured it based on how much space I knew I needed to cover. So I will just get started, and I will try to explain things as I'm going. So you really do want your wire to be straight, and I will tell you right now that this is 20 gauge wire, and I could probably get away with 22 gauge wire, which would be easier to use, but I'm going to use 20 for strength. And on other pieces, like the crosses that I'm going to make, I will use 18 gauge because they are very, very flimsy and they really need the structural integrity. So the thing is, you don't want to C-wire. So when you get started, and I'm not going to start with the side on the kink, and the wire's probably, I always worked from my left, so the wire's probably going to hit the camera, and I apologize in advance because I probably won't know what happened. So when you start, there's a little gap right there. And when you know you're going to wire a piece, I don't know if you can see that right there. When you know you're going to wire a piece, it's always good to leave a spot for your wire to go in. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put that wire, and this is just how I do it. This is not right. This is not wrong. This is just what I do. And I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to kind of bend it onto my piece. So now I've got that piece, the end of it buried into that seam, if you can see that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solder that down. Now, you have to use flux when you solder. If you don't use flux, nothing will stick. And this is the flux that I use. It works great. And I have tried different kinds of flux over the years, and so far that is my favorite. I have less trouble with that than anything else. So put a little flux on there. I'm going to grab my soldering iron, clean the tip on this wet sponge, and grab a little bit of solder off my spool. And I'm just going to drop that on there. I'm going to let my finger get hot. by the time I die, I probably will not have any fingerprints left on my fingers. And now that's stuck. And you can see that that is stuck. But you have to do the whole thing. So the way I usually do it, I've made a lot of these stars, so I got kind of a routine. It still takes me, and it will probably take me longer because I'm talking to the camera, but it takes me about 45 minutes to wire. And from the time I start wiring to the time I finish with the decorative corners and all that, it takes me about 45 minutes. So when you're thinking about my $25 star, my materials, my time, my burnt fingers, 25 is actually pretty reasonable. So I try to put on 2 tack solders on each piece. Now, I don't know if you can see this on this particular star. I didn't get the pointy, so it's not going to be pointy. That's just the way it is. This is not a production piece. Every single piece of every single star was cut by hand. Nothing was cut in a production line using a jig or any other thing. It's just a pattern. I lay out the same. I made the pattern out of glass because, that's what I have available. I lay out the same piece 5 times, draw it out, cut it out, and move on to the next one. So my wire's on there now, and I'm going to continue going around. And because this wire is malleable, I'm just going to put it down like that and tighten it using my thumb and my fingers until I get almost to the corner, and then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to turn it so that it's this direction. I'm going to hold it tight with my finger so I can get burned again, because it's kind of what we do. Put a little flux on there. Grab a little solder. I don't like to waste, so if I drip solder onto my mat, I'll pick it up and tack it on. And sometimes I don't get a good tack, and sometimes I have to do it more than once. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take my little pliers that have definitely seen better days, and I'm going to run that along the wire until I get it right down into that corner so that it is nice and tight. And then I am going to hold it down on the other side with my thumb or my finger. I am going to put another little bit of flux, a little bit of solder, tack it down, and then turn it again. And the whole time you're trying to keep your wire kind of in the center of your glass, because you don't want to see this wire. It's not part of the design, it's just part of the structure. Every so often you need to wipe off your soldering iron. And I do a built-in hanger with these, so I have to pay attention to where I'm at. Because I started here with my wire, my built-in hanger is going to be on this point right here where I'm pointing with my right hand. So it's time to do my second tack on that particular leg of the star. So we will do another little bit of flux. It's funny trying to do something like this and keep it in frame. I've never done a video before, and I talk too much. Ask anybody, they'll tell you. So here we go. We're again going to go around that corner using my finger to hold it snug to the piece, keeping it all the way almost until we get to the corner. It's nice and tight right here. Keep it in the center. Put a little flux. And just so you know, I might do it a little bit different each time, but the general process is the same. No, that didn't take. There we go. And the wire gets really hot, and I can't let go till the solder's semi-cool or it will not stick. Now, we've got that tight on there. We're going to use our handy dandy pliers that have, again, seen better days. And push that into the corner. Flex it. Drop some solder on it. Turn it. Okay. I'm trying to decide where I want to put the loop. And we're going to put it on here. So this one's a little different now. It's not different on this part. Still going to flux and solder. And it's going to be hard for me to keep some stuff in frame when I do certain things, and I'll try my best, but I don't really want to be on the screen because, you know, I don't really get dressed up to come down to my studio and work. Also, I usually have music going, but I feel like if I have music going, there might be some copyright stuff going on, so I decided I better not have any music. Okay, now, this is the one I'm going to put the built-in hanger on. So I'm going to still put my second tack on there, but maybe not real close to the corner. And come on. All right. Okay. Now, the way I do these, and they're different every time. They're never always exactly the same. I'm not a machine. I don't do things like a machine. So that was me. Whoops. And then I put a kink right back in it. Just kind of putting a little straight on that. Now, you probably couldn't see it because I had it off frame. And these poor pliers, they've been through hell, but I have yet to find a pair that I like as well as I like these. So I need a little loop to put a ornament hanger or a ribbon or something to hang a sun catcher, depending on how you decide you want to use something like this. Personally, I design them to be ornaments, but they don't have to be. And it's a star, so it's not exactly my design. I didn't exactly come up with this. It's a 5-pointed star. They've been around. But I like to take and put my tweezer on the tip. And this one is a little bit square, so that's kind of handy. I'm going to quite literally just bend my loop or my wire over the tweezer to create a little loop in there. Pull it out. There's my loop. And then I'll take same tweezers, tighten it up to the glass, but there's my loop. Now I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to put my flux drop my solder, and voila, a loop. That's a big one. They're not normally that big. And that one's not entirely done, just so you know. I'll tweak it a little bit to kind of make it look the same. But that one's actually pretty good. I like that one. Okay, so we basically just keep going, same way we were. Keep that finger on there till it gets real close to the corner. Let go. Use the handy dandy tweezers. Squeeze it down into the corner so it's nice and tight. Kind of make sure it's centered in the glass. Put a little flux. And pull little solder. Turn it. Now, just so you think, oh, that's not that hard. There is so much more to it after I do this. This is just tacking it on because you have to completely bury this with solder after you get it tacked on. And it's messy and it's hot. Actually, I haven't, this one's going really smooth. I hate to jinx myself because they don't always go this smooth. And we'll put that second tack on. Again, keeping it centered. The beauty of, if you do this right, and I'm tooting my own horn, but I actually am pretty good at wiring things. My very second project I ever made had to be wired. And that was when I first, obviously, I was brand new, didn't know anything about the structural integrity of glass. But I picked a piece, actually my son Spencer's Dragon, that didn't have a frame around it. And the gal whose store I shopped at or took my lessons at told me, because I didn't have a place to work then, and I didn't have tools and I didn't have equipment. So I rented studio time from her so I could go to her. Oops, now see, there was a flub. Piece went off the edge of the glass, so I don't know if you can see it, but see, it's not tight now because it got too big. So now I have to try and use my tweezers to fight that in there. And I just bent my my hanging loop because that's the corner it's resting on. All right, I'll stop talking for half a second while I fix this. Okay. Anyway, I didn't have a studio space. I didn't have any place to work. And I rented space. So for $2 an hour, I could go to her store, work on her benches, and use her equipment. And so when I was deciding, I wanted to make stained glass, and that my second piece was going to be my son Spencer's Dragon. She said to me, that's a very ambitious piece for a second piece. And I said, yeah, but this is what I want to make. And she said, okay, but it's your money. And just so you know, if you don't wire that, it's not going to have structural integrity. And I said, what's wiring? And she said, well, when you get there, I'll give you the basics on how to do it. And then you'll have to do it. Well, she was kind of a brusque woman, to put it nicely. And sometimes if my solder is a little lumpy, I'll press down on it to kind of get it to go around. She was kind of a brusque woman, and I went through so much glass making that dragon. Spencer, I hope you enjoyed it, or enjoy it, because it's wired, so it's still in one piece 25 years later, 24 years later. So when I got there, she showed me how to wire it. And that was when I found out that if you want things to have structural integrity, if you don't put a frame, zinc, lead, or hobby-cam around it, then you need to put wire. And you can use a variety of wire. You can use 22. You can use gauge-wise. You can use 22, 20, 18, 16, 14. If you can work with 16 gauge wire or 14 gauge wire, more power to you. I can't. They are far, far, far too thick, in my opinion, to work with. So I use 18 as the heaviest wire that I work with, although sometimes I will use, I'll show you this. It's sitting right here, and I have some made up. This is triple strand 22 gauge twisted wire. And what I do is I take one big long strand of 22 gauge wire and fold it in three. And then I put one end in my drill, and I put one end on my hook I have in a wall, and I use my drill to twist it. And you get this really nice twisted appearance. And this is 18 gauge triple strand twisted. And there is a huge, huge difference in your wires, 22, 18. Anyway, but you don't need that kind of chutzpah for this. It's gonna go on the floor. Okay. Anyway, this is gonna be our last side of our last leg of our star, and I'm gonna bend it over, and then this one's a little bit different. Anyway, so that's when I learned how to do about wiring and when you needed wiring and why you do wiring, and I have been a very firm believer in wiring ever since. And again, I've never had a piece fail structurally. Okay, this is the last leg of the star, and it's gonna go, I'm gonna cut it here with my handy dandy cutters, little side cutters, and I'm gonna leave just a hair longer than the leg to try, please note I said try and bend it into that seam, because if you can bury it in a seam, it's better. So just a little bit longer, not much. Add that to my other long wire collection. And I don't know if I can do this on camera, but I'll give it a shot. Handy dandy pliers, bend it a little bit. Might have to do this off camera just because this is not a good angle to do anything at. And I might have to cut it a little shorter too. Oh, I got that in there. It's not quite centered, but we'll hold her down. It's okay if it's not exactly centered. I like things centered, but I got it in. Gonna solder it in place. Hope I'm in screen. Probably not, because videos are not my first career. Just so you know, every time I hold that with my fingers, it gets really hot. Now, I don't know if you can see that. There's a wire is actually right there. But that will get covered up. You will not know that's there. So it will all be good. And the ends of the wires are now nicely buried. I don't always get that lucky. Sometimes I can't get them buried because either I didn't leave enough room or I just can't manipulate the wire enough. Okay, so now we are tack soldered into place, and it might not be the prettiest thing you ever saw right at the moment, but now it is really, really sturdy. I mean, like, you could drop this on the floor and you might break the glass, but the frame will still be there. And you can still see it a little bit. But by the time I'm done with it, see, it's been a half an hour. See, I told you it takes me 45. Well, it's going to take me longer because I'm talking. All right, so now we have to bury the wire. Again, trying to keep this in frame, which is not hard for me, easy for me. So here's the spot where I buried the wire is right here. So I don't want to start there because I don't want the wires to pop out. So I'm going to actually start on the other side. I don't remember what these are called. I call them a third hand. They are great, especially for this particular project, because I don't need to hold that now. I can just set that there. I'll put it that way so you can see it. That's not how I would do it. Normally it would be facing me like this, but I'll put it like that. Okay. And then here's what you do. This is what I do. Let me rephrase that. Got to put flux. Without flux, nothing sticks. All right. Flux it. And then I have to get a new spool of solder out. I have to buy solder pretty soon. And then you just kind of tap solder onto it. And I don't know if it shows to you the way it shows to me, but it literally just makes the wire kind of go away. Now it will make a mess. Sometimes the solder doesn't stick, and you have to kind of go back over it. Like right there, I got a little lump. That looks pretty good. Now I'll just turn it. See there? Just turn it and keep going all the way around. Don't waste solder, it's too expensive. $28 a pound for soldered, people. If you can find a really good deal, then you can get it for less. The solder I'm currently using, I hate to admit that I bought it not from my local supplier, because I like to buy things from my local supplier, but it was too good of a deal. I got it for $20 a pound, and that was really cheap. So, okay. So again, just kind of tapping, tap, tap, tap. And it just kind of hides that wire and gives you a nice beaded edge. And that gives you strength and hides the wire. And you can still see the wire a little bit. It's not like completely hidden. You can see the edge of the wire is right there, but it's just not noticeable. And if you just keep working your way around, eventually you get all the sides. There's obviously, it's a 5-sided star, so there are 10 sides. So you just keep turning it, and eventually you get all the sides. And when I'm done, there's going to be little areas in the points that I'll have to fill in, because I left them open so that I could find a place to bury my wires. So they're not going to be clean. I'll have to do some touch-up solder, and that's okay and to be expected. And that little swipe I just did just kind of smooths it out. I don't always need to do that, but sometimes I do. The other thing is that you wouldn't think it, but this is really hard on your body. I always go upstairs. That was a hair, by the way. One of mine. Color to be determined. I don't know if it was blonde, gray, or brown. There's a little bit of everything in there. You spend so many hours hunched over that you don't realize when you stand up after doing this for a full day or a couple of days in a row, like I have been, that you're really sore. Now, clearly, my star is not straight because, he's sitting on the, see how it's crooked in there? And that's because right now he's sitting on the little hook. So I'm going to try and get it to be a little bit more, see, it's not going to stay level because I don't want my solder to run off. All right, I'm getting close to, there we go. Still need to do this one. Solder on there. This is probably really boring. Oh no, there's a casualty of war. I don't have a setup for filming, so just make and do. Sorry, hope nobody's getting sick. Okay, I think everything's good. Till it falls over again. Wonder why it just suddenly fell. Didn't really do anything. Not really shaking the table. Okay. Now this particular one is the one where I have the wires buried. So I have to pay a little bit more attention to be careful not to let my wires out. And that might be the end. Yep, that was the last one. Okay. Now I got a little spot on that square corner, on that square point that I gotta fill because it wasn't a point. And actually that turned out pretty good. All right, so now here's what I got going on. If you can see on these spots here, there's no solder. That's because I left them open on purpose to make sure I had a place to put my wires. So, ooh, I almost knocked the camera over again. If I gotta make more videos, clearly I need to get an overhead camera set up like I've seen others use, but I don't know that I will. I'm actually really enjoy listening to music a lot more than I enjoy listening to myself talk. But so now I need to smooth out and fill in those spots where there is no solder. And I am going to make use of all my solder that dripped off because, again, $20 to $28 a pound, waste not, want not. And I know $25 for a little ornament seems like a lot of money, but it's not as much as you might think. And usually I have enough solder in there that I can just kind of redistribute what I've got when I get to this point. But this time I need a little. And you always want to go for a nice smooth solder line. And you want it to be very clean looking. And you don't want it to have any flux holes from where the flux burned out. One of the things that using this paste has done is give me much better solder. So that fast, now that side is pretty cleaned up. And I'll do the other side. And there's probably enough flux on here already, but we'll flex it and yes, there is such a thing as too much flux, because if you do get too much flux, it will create corrosion if you don't clean good. And I try really hard to clean good, but I have still had corrosion rear its ugly head on occasion. So definitely need more solder here. And when you're soldering, for those of you that don't know about stained glass or solder, you want rounded seams. You don't need them to be 5 miles high, but you don't want them to be flat, because the solder is really what gives you the structure. The tape is merely there to hold the solder until you get all the solder on. Once you have it soldered, the solder holds itself. And if you do go over the same area too many times, you will end up with what they call a burn through. And what that is it gets so hot it burns through to the other side and all the solder flows out. I'm just kind of touching up a couple of things that I see that I'm not crazy about, just so you know. This thing is hot. Okay, I think it's ready for the decorative pieces. Now, the big question is, right now it looks exactly the same on both sides, and it's very hot. So as I hold it, I'm burning my fingers. The big question is, what side do I want to put the decorative pieces on? There's this side, which doesn't have, I don't even know what you can and can't see because I can't really see what's in frame. This has got a nice streak and that's got a nice streak, and these have streaks, but they're not great. This side, well, definitely this side. Okay, never mind. It's going on this side. Okay, so these are my little pieces. These are book corners. I bought them off of Amazon. They are just very cheap, very bendable, and they will not take a ton of heat. I have found that if you overheat them, they all of a sudden will just, like, all of your little silver metal coating just it burns right off and you're left with what looks to be rust. So I have to be very careful when I use these not to let them get too hot. And it's not too bad because they take solder really well. So if you're, careful, then, and I will be using this like this, so you will see what I'm going to do. Is that in frame? I don't know. I can't really see it because I'm kind of blind. So all these are going to go on here. They're going to get soldered on like this for a decorative piece. And just one in each corner gets soldered. It gets tack soldered in 3 places. And I gotta line it up. And once it's lined up, then I tack solder it and it's good to go. And my handy dandy little pliers get used quite a bit on this too, because those suckers get really hot. Everything gets really hot. Hence I'll be lucky if I have fingerprints when I'm dead. If I have fingerprints, it'll be a big surprise. If you hear swearing in the background, my husband's upstairs and he's in the kitchen. And I don't think it'll pick up on the tape, but I did just hear some cursing. So FYI, there might be cursing. And you got to hold it in place until the solder solidifies. I know you probably couldn't see that, but it's almost impossible to get that on camera. I'll try with that. So literally, I'm going to hold that down. I've already flexed it. I'm going to grab a little solder. I am going to push it down to the piece, put the solder on, and bring it into the seam. Wait till it cools. Well, let me rephrase it. Wait till it solidifies, and then check it to make sure it's good. Seems good. Okay, and then move on to the next corner. So this is just obviously one little thing that I make. I'm currently making a batch of crosses that are also decorated with these little book corners that I never thought there would be so much versatility to those things. Who'd have thunk it? Now I'm burning. Burning, 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 burning. Fingers, burning. Okay, that got hot in a hurry. All right, I'll hold this down with my handy dandy pliers this time. Maybe you can see. I am now at risk of having put too much heat on this. All right, I think that's done. It is, these are fussy, fussy little things. I cannot tell you how many times I have been, I thought done, only to find that I had managed to burn it and have to take it off and do a new one. So you can see what they look like there. It just adds a little something, something. Makes it fancy. Gotta love fancy. Now you know why those pliers look like that, because they are just abused. All right, here we go. Number 3. Wish you could see it from this side. I'm burning my fingers. Ah. I don't know if that one's on there good. We'll find out. Yeah, feels like it's pretty good. Okay, and number 4. I'll line her up. Flexor, flexor. Take a little bit of solder. Put that right on there. Burning. Yes. I'm gonna have to go back to that one. Got too hot. The reason I push it down with the pliers is because it needs to be tight, and it gets too hot for me to hold it until it cools. I don't know. So I'm going to do something that I didn't do on any of the others. I am going to put a little flux on the edge there. And I am going to kind of run that. I got a lump of solder right there. And instead of trying to take it off, because I don't think this is firmly attached, although it does feel pretty good, I am going to run that solder so it kind of catches the back side of that. And maybe I'm making a mistake, but it's always good to have things more firmly attached than what you think you need. All right. And then one more. It's not easy to do everything in gloves, but you have to wear gloves when you're, in my opinion, you have to wear gloves when you're soldering. Now, you do not have to wear gloves when you're soldering, but I, for one, cannot stand the way my hands feel when I have flux on my skin. Flux is actually an acid, and it makes my fingers not feel good. So I wear gloves always when I'm soldering. And I have taught my grandchildren, 3 of them, how to do stained glass. And I have taught them to always wear gloves when soldering. Also, it's a safety thing. I wear nitrile gloves, and it does create a little bit of a barrier from the heat when you're doing stuff like this. And I unfortunately do a lot more of this stuff than I really want to. I frequently say to myself, I'm not going to do this if I have to wire it. And yet I always find myself wiring things. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Not enough flux. You know how I can tell? I can tell because it's spiky and it won't stick. Ugh. Okay. There you go. Put a little flux on it. And the point. And then maybe there'll be a little bit of touch-up stuff, but basically it'll be done. Except for the cleaning and the polishing. Because after all the soldering is done, you still have to clean and polish. And you have to clean it twice, because you have to clean it once to neutralize the flux. Again, it's acid. And you have to clean it again to get it really clean. And then after you clean it and it's nice and dry, then you have to polish it with polish to make it good and shiny. So, yeah. Let's take a look at it and see if we're good. There's a little something right there we can smooth out. Needs flux. You can always tell when you don't have enough flux because your stuff is spiky, not smooth. All right. Okay. This side looks good. Oh, there's a burn through. I don't know if you can see it, but that right there, that is a burn through. It's flat and it's kind of pitted, and that's because it was laying flat up against the silicone mat when the solder ran through. But that's what a burn through looks like. And you can get them, mostly you get them in your seams, but that's a burn through on this piece. And I'll just put a little solder on it, or excuse me, a little flux on it, and then just run the iron across it, and that'll actually bring it right back to a nice rounded bead. And just like that, it's fixed. So let's keep looking. Everything looks, oh, there's a little burn through right there. Okay, and everything looks good. And my front looks good. So this one's done, except for cleaning and polishing, which I'm not gonna put on camera because I can't do that in here. I have to take it in the other room, and I can't hold my camera because I'm not gonna touch my phone with flux. So I don't even know how I'm gonna turn the film off, but I have another one to wire anyway, so I'm not gonna bore you with that. So thanks for watching if you did, and sorry if you were bored. I even bored myself a little bit, but it is what it is. So have a good day. Bye. Siri, stop camera. Yeah, that didn't work. Well, Let's see what I gotta do here. I don't really want to be on camera. My stick.